Hello, friends. Welcome to my podcast, Conversations Between Terry Lynn and New Authors. On this episode, I'm talking with Mark Dougherty, a poet and author of spoken word from the Mirror, Doors of the Heart, and Unscripted, a poet's journey. His work centers on healing, self awareness, and living beyond the scripts we're handed. Welcome, Mark.
Hello.
Please tell us about your writing and your first book.
Well, I'm a poet, an author, observer of the human condition. I've lived a few different lives, son, father, chef, seeker, and like a lot of people, I've spent years following scripts that didn't quite fit. My most recent book, Unscripted, came out of a moment when I realized healing doesn't come from pretending we're fine, but from telling the truth. The work lives at the intersection of poetry, reflection, and lived experience. I connect with people who feel deeply, question everything, and are ready to come home to themselves. The soul doesn't thrive in someone else's expectations. I've been a witness to shame, grief, love, life, death, beauty, and the quiet moments that shape us. So it's really about peeling back the layers we wear to survive and asking, who are we without the masks that we wear? Spoken word from the Mirror was written out of a lot from pain, really a lot of transition in my life, and that was my first book. It started out as a journal, and I was encouraged to publish it. And then I published another one shortly after, and then published my third book, Unscripted, within the same year.
That's incredibly powerful. Writing from such a raw, honest place makes the book feel deeply real and meaningful. What inspired you to write children's books?
My books are really geared toward, adults that are transitioning in life, going through difficult situations, trying to figure out who they are again, and trying to recognize that they've always had these gifts, but it's just been covered up for a long time due to social expectations and conditioning. And I think that adults who read my book could maybe have a better sense of understanding of who they are, and if their parents, uncles, teachers, what have you, I think that it would allow them to look at themselves and authentically and be able to pass that on to children, to tell them to listen to your heart and not your mind or what society is telling you. So I think it's a powerful lesson for children.
What challenges have you faced as a new author, especially when it comes to publishing or marketing your book?
Well, I'm new at this. I never really considered myself a writer or an author before. And here I am 3 books in. There's a lot more to it, obviously, than just writing. There's been a lot of challenges. There are a lot of books out there, and you could have the most wonderful book, but it might go unnoticed and slip through the crack. I'm still working on it and trying to gather advice from authors, but there are a lot of predators out there as far as people trying to take advantage of creative people who are trying to put the work out there, and they're making all these promises and taking money and not delivering. So there's that to go through as well. But I think the key is to make connections with other authors and ask them what their experiences are. And I rely heavily on that because I have not been in this game for too long.
What was your favorite book as a child, and do you think it influenced your writing style today?
Well, I mean, I loved all the Dr. Seuss books, and I think that Dr. Seuss he was ahead of his time. And when he was writing, he couldn't just quite point blank, spell it out. So he had a unique way of delivering some adult-like, powerful messages to children under the guise of children's illustrations and stories. So I resonated with that, and perhaps maybe the rhyming stuck in my subconscious and has come out and helped me to be a more conscious poet.
Is there a scene or character in your book that's especially meaningful to you? Why?
Well, there's so many scenes and snapshots, life of failures. And, there was a time not that long ago where failure was a bad word. Let's be honest, we're taught how to win, but we're not taught how to lose. And we're going to experience a lot of failures, and where we learn and that's where we grow. Um, the main character, I guess, is me based on my experiences, but it's relatable to just about anybody who is willing to let go of their ego and get more into their heart and discover who they truly are authentically.
What age group do you write for, and what draws you to that specific audience?
You know, I was just writing really for me for healing purposes and was encouraged to publish. And I think it's for any young adult and all the way up through older adults, people who are willing to look at life through a different lens, not the lens that was created by societal norms, but a lens that shows you that life can be a lot better than it is and it should be. And it's not that complicated to do so.
Are there any books or authors that inspired your writing style or love for storytelling?
As a child and as a young adult, and it wasn't really discovered when I was growing up, but I had a lot of learning disabilities where I was distracted, and the educational system that I experienced wasn't very nurturing for students like myself. So, having said that, I really had to resonate with a book to in order to dig in, and I related to Tennessee Williams a lot, like Streetcar Named Desire and Ernest Hemingway. I love the storytelling, I love the detail, I love the vulnerability that was shown through the writing. So I guess you could say it's inspired me to be a little more authentic and expose the human condition so we can learn from it.
What do you think makes a children's book truly memorable?
The packaging and the illustrations really grab you. They bring you in, and I think it's really important. And I think that, the children's books that I related to were the ones that had some lessons, and it wasn't about magic or fairy tales. It was about learning, growing, and that life is not perfect, and that we have a lot more power than what people or society tells us.
Do you have any advice for other aspiring authors who are just starting out, especially in?
Yes, I would say don't doubt yourself. There's always going to be that doubt, like I'm not good enough, or who's going to, you're going to question who's going to really want to read my material. But I think it's not really about that. It's about getting that out there and doing it. And I think you'll find your audience. And there's people that will resonate with your work, and there's people that won't, and that's okay. So we attract who we are. So I would say just stick with it and even if you feel like you're in a so-called writer's block, which I don't really believe in writer's block, I think it's just a temporary pause. And if you're not flowing, just write down a few words here and there and don't throw away anything. I call them scraps and save them and you can put those together like pieces of a puzzle and you never know where that's going to lead you. So if you do that every day, you're accumulating quite a few words. Within a few months, you'll have several chapters. So don't give up.
What exciting projects or books are you working on next?
Well, I'm always writing poetry, and it comes to me in bits and pieces, like I described. It's often in between, the moments and experiences in life. Most recently, I've been inspired by a connection I've formed with a young man living in a refugee camp in Bangladesh who is Rohingya, and I'm learning about his culture and the persecution his people have endured. I realize that it's been devastating and eye-opening to me, especially given how unfamiliar this reality is to much of the Western world. I think I take a lot of things for granted, and even though I've accumulated all this knowledge and wisdom, I often find myself falling short, but I'm more aware and I catch myself now of just simple practices of gratitude. Like I could get up and walk around and I could feed myself. I have a roof over my head. I have water, and life is really not as bad as it seems. And I have a lot of admiration for people who are facing, you know, cultural persecution or physical disabilities or, poverty or what have you. So yeah, I'm deeply reflective and it could be really painful and it should be. We need to be a little more empathetic and slow down and be aware that, you might think you're struggling in your world and everything passes, but there's always somebody that is struggling a little more. And our job is to lift people up, not put them down or judge.
Where can people find you online? Follow your journey.
I have a Facebook profile under my name, Mark R. Dougherty, and I have also a link to that, Healing Through Poetry. And you can find me on Instagram at raw poet 66 as well. And one of my goals is to expand.
Thank you, Mark, for your information. I will put your social media handles in this episode's notes below.
You're welcome.
Is there anything else you want people to know about you?
Like I mentioned, I'm a deeply reflective person, and I write from the heart, and I think that's really important because that's where authenticity lies. Can I add something else to that one? I just had something. You know, I'm not here to preach or pretend that I have it figured out. I'm here to tell the truth as I live it through my experiences. And my work comes from lived experiences, failure, growth, humility, love, and resilience. And I believe that vulnerability is strength. Healing is possible. And that when one person finds the courage to live honestly, it gives others permission to do the same. So my writing is an invitation, not an instruction, an open door for anyone ready to rewrite their own story. Because every day we get another opportunity to do that.
Thank you, Mark, for talking with me on my podcast, Conversations Between Terry Lynn and New Authors on the Rise.
Thank you. It's been an enjoyable experience. I like talking about my work and meeting other interesting people through this journey. It's been a pleasure.
You are welcome, Mark. Okay, my listeners, tune in next week when I give you an update on my life and find out how you can join my launch team for my first sign language book. Until then, happy reading with your kiddos.